It's time for Stars on Sports,
a podcast radio show dedicated to sharing stories about our athletic program at Lansing Community College.
LCC Athletics has a strong tradition.
24 national championship wins.
Over 170 All-Americans.
19 MCCAA All-Sports trophies.
Stars on Sports will introduce you to individuals that have contributed to our program's success and give you the backstory on what it takes to develop it.
We'll also dive into and break down the topics and issues facing athletic departments across the nation and right here at LCC.
This is Stars on Sports. Hello and welcome to another episode of Stars on Sports. I am joined today by our Assistant Athletic Director, Stephen Cutter, and our producer, Jereny Robinson. And today, gentlemen, we're going to be talking about just the impact of star players. And, you know, Jereny brought it up before our podcast about player hype, but we deal with it at our level and colleges across, you know, the Caitlin Clark thing is the thing that first comes to my mind, and I've been very intrigued by her this winter and even over the last year. And it goes back to me, even Magic and Bird. I remember, you know, I wasn't a Michigan State fan growing up, but the hype that those two received and really, you know, some that changed the sports landscape in 1979 because you had two personality that people gravitated to. And it's been a, you know, as much as sports is you know, popular in our society, it's having that personality that people can connect to that really maybe increases that sports present in the world. And you can say any sport, soccer, baseball, running. So, you know, and even at every level, I mean, you know, I've seen at high school level a top prospect that people go watch if, you know, their team's not playing or something. And so I think it's across levels, but we can talk about LCC, but what do you guys think of when you think of Caitlin Clark? I know we can talk about other personalities too, and we'll talk about some throughout history, but have you guys followed her at all?
Yeah, I followed her. I was more on the Angel Reese side of things because I follow LSU pretty hard.
Did you follow him before Angel Reese?
No.
Okay.
I heard about the story, and then this last season, I watched all their games.
Okay. But it took that personality to you for you to become an LSU fan, LSU women's basketball fan.
I didn't watch women's basketball, honestly.
Okay. Same here. I mean, I watched some, but I definitely watched more because of, you know, I like the way, you know, Caitlin played out there.
I think people are looking for greatness in different ways. And, you know, I think of women's basketball, there was a big hype at one point on some of them that could dunk because that was different.
Right.
You know, and that's what greatness is too. So you see some of that. You brought up Magic and Bird, and, you know, one was an extrovert and one was an introvert. So people could relate in different ways. You know, Larry was from French Lick and, you know, Magic was, of course, from here, but big time extrovert, big time smiley guy. And Larry was just the complete opposite of that, really didn't have a lot to say and just kind of put in the work. And so people could identify. And I think for the most part, when you are looking for greatness and you find it, people can relate to it in one way, shape, or form. And that's where the hype starts coming from, and it just continues to grow.
And sports definitely lends to that hype, but I agree with you. The note I had is appreciate a high level. And is it just talent though? Or, I mean, you mentioned Larry Bird, who was more an introvert that still went on and had a following as a pro career, but, you know, Magic was engaging. He had that smile that lit up a room that you kind of, you know, just wanted to be around. And, you know, but when you look at different, you know, it seems like the NBA has more of those people, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, you know, that were just fierce and focused and competitive and actually might not have seemed very nice out on the floor because it was all about winning, which you and I talk about the book Winning by Tim Grover. I believe that is his name. Am I saying it right? But which is we both like and it's intriguing. But and right now, for the last couple of years, I would argue the MLB is trying to find that person. They keep talking about different personalities to be the face of MLB, and there's a couple of us players that don't want that, So, but I think even those organizations understand the importance of it. But is it just talent, or do they have to have more than that?
I think when personality meets great talent, it turns into a superstar. Because I was looking at, I had to look him up. DJ Burns, they played in a tournament. He was out of nowhere, this big dude, great personality, and he just passed well. He was kind of like from Denver Nuggets, Joker. He played like him, and they made it almost to the end. They team he was with NC State.
The success have to have some of it.
Yeah, success.
If Indiana State and Michigan State weren't any good, would anyone know about one of those two teams?
Nope.
No, it was all black and white anyway. So,
man, dating me, Cutter. But it is intriguing, and even at our level, usually it is the top prospects. We have student athletes that go to 4-year institutions at all the levels, NAIA, D3, D2, D1, and some of our D1 prospects have developed a nice following. And the neat thing is when someone comes to watch them, there might be someone else that steps up that people are able to watch and gravitate to. But it's still, I'm still struggling with that journey, whether you do need that personality. I mean, I would think, I guess when you set that back, Michael and Kobe still had that personality off the floor, and when they, did interviews and such. And Caitlin Clark definitely has that personality, and so does Angel Reese, and, the rivalry those two kind of formed against. But it's also just appreciating that play. I mean, that's, in the end for me, that's what I like is the high level of play, as you alluded to. It's special and it's uncommon, and and
still comes down to winning. So still you have to be, I believe you have to be successful for it to happen. You think about the NCAA tournament in Oakland this year, and them pulling off a large upset. The hype went crazy for the I can't remember his name, but he had a ton of threes. And
Townsend, they're still talking now. Look what he's gonna be able to accomplish now because of that hype. And now it's not going to be at Oakland next year; we'll be at a
higher level. Yeah.
But even Caitlin Clark, people argue, was she a great player because she didn't win a championship or the national championship? I'm not even sure they won the Big Ten championship.
They got to the finals.
Yeah.
I mean. So, there's fine lines between those two. So, but I do believe you have to have success for sure.
Yeah. I think it helps. I mean, we go back to quarterbacks in the NFL that never won the Super Bowl, but they're still considered an elite quarterback, but maybe not in the same level as you mentioned, having that championship and that talent. Maybe that could be one of those separators and lend to the hype, because winning does provide, you get more publicity, you get your season's longer, you're on TV more, merchandise kind of a thing. But it's still, I still think it's a combination of things too, as Jereny alluded to, because I think there's some people that don't want that hype. They don't thrive under that hype. Maybe that would hurt them even of getting to that next level.
Right. I think there's countless stories of the people that don't want it, and then there's countless stories of the people that have had it and it's went away and they've struggled too once it's gone. So, it's kind of a double-edged sword on the hype thing, and pretty interesting to watch in sports for sure.
Yeah, that's another point, longevity of it. Back to Oakland, a 1-year thing. Next year we might not be talking Oakland and even remember Oakland, but the other people we mentioned, even Caitlin in Iowa, she with a couple-year thing, and we'll see where it goes to the next level. But the other players we mentioned,
I think about Indiana Hoosier basketball, in the Bobby Knight days, and how strong they were. And they were recruiting an 8th grader. And at that time, that was unheard of. His name was Damon Bailey. And the amount of hype, he turned into a phenom with the hype that was going through. He was like the all-time leading scorer in Indiana high school basketball, and went to Indiana. I think he started for 4 years, had a good college career, was drafted in the NBA, and was cut the next season.
Wow.
And so, that's kind of what I talk about of, the hype can be there, but then when it's gone, what's that look like too? And so it is a double-edged sword, because it can feel really great, and then it can also be gone, and somebody's on to the next thing. There will be a next Caitlin Clark, maybe not with the ability that she has. It might be a different ability, just like there will be another Shaq, and there will be another Kobe, and those kind of things. It might not be the same person, might not be the same personality or anything else, but there'll be a next one.
And I think the talent has to meet the times too, because you get another Shaq, but that might not transfer well to the NBA right now.
Absolutely.
So
I agree. Timing is something. In LeBron, I remember, he came along when high school sports was kind of growing on TV, and really, his team got to travel all over the country, and it was one of the first high school teams that put it on TV. Yep. Tiger Woods in golf, started young, but I still wonder about personality, or just that focus and fierceness, that competitiveness. And I think Caitlin Clark has it. I think Angel Reese has it. I think LeBron has it. That they have that competitiveness too, which I think that we both think very important in being successful. But I want to go back to the hype thing, in the sense of how many didn't make it. You've talked about Damon Bailey, how in LeBron, even in high school, how hard it on some of them, and we've seen it. It's hard to name some of them, but that have failed, that never reached that hype, that whether with high school or getting to college or even #1 draft picks. And some of it, I think, is due because of that hype, that they either couldn't handle it or weren't comfortable with it, that it impacted their career that way.
To some degree, but the failure is also what people tend to pull behind too, because that's the underdog mentality. So you might see somebody like Josh Hamilton, who was, a highly regarded baseball player, and then struggled with some outside issues, and really, failed in a lot of different ways, was able to come back, but came back later in his career. And, a lot of people get behind that kind of stuff too, because it is the underdog mentality.
Yeah. And that's something we've talked a lot about lately in our office, is the story. That at times you might not understand why you had a setback or an injury, or like you said, external issues, and even dealing with that hype, but it could make that story greater by what you overcome. And sometimes we forget that it is. We always think, I don't think we always think, but people think that the path to success is pretty rosy, pretty easy.
And I think that's because some people do have those paths to success. It's a paved road already. There's not any curves or sharp hills in it or anything else like that. It's a fairly straight path to success, and we've named a few names that have had a fairly, it's not that they haven't worked for it, but it's been a paved road. And then there's plenty of others that, I think they say that people often give up and they don't realize how close they actually are. But they stop because it's challenging, and they're looking around and they can see that maybe this person, this outlier, didn't have these issues.
I think about like Grant Hill, who was extremely good, and he got injured and couldn't get healed up, and he finally ended up like pushing through and having a couple good seasons, but
good seasons, but not great seasons.
Not great. And by that time, like you said, the hype was already gone. But to have that mentality to keep going, I give him a lot of kudos for that.
First year at Duke, I think they won a national championship or played in the national. I think they won one, and he was a freshman that was starting on a really good basketball team, and he's having these incredible alley oops and different things, and then it just kind of went away, and he found a way to sort of come back, but I don't know that he was ever completely the same. And so that happens. And like I said, that's a different road. But a lot of people forget about those kind of stories, and they see the outlier stories and think, well, they didn't have to do this. They were able to go from here to here to here, and they had success all along the way, and they had people behind them helping them.
I mean, again, so many things, but true fans know about those stories that maybe weren't as successful as they should be, but were still pretty, like a Grant Hill that still was successful, but just not to the original hype. To the path thing, don't you call those people that have a paid path born on third base? Just kidding.
I love that.
So I got to start at home.
I never heard that.
Yeah, still got to get them in though.
True that.
Still 90 feet.
But then the other neat topic that I think, and we've talked a little bit before on our podcast about player hype and greatness, is making your teammates better. And those ones that do it, and you see, you can't do it by yourself. And back to Caitlin Clark.
I was just about to say that.
She still made Iowa better. She might not have had the same surrounding cast that LSU or South Carolina have. And she doesn't have control over that at some levels. You do. I mean, look at LeBron had control, and Michael did too. Not so much, but
Michael kind of figured it out later on in his career about that. Like, he needed some help around him.
Yeah, his first couple of years.
How important the team was, and how important, not only blowing guys up when they're not doing well, but also saying, like, hey, this is how we're going to do stuff, and I need you. And that was really the difference with Michael in the teams that he had, because if you look at when they were struggling to beat the Pistons, it was Michael against the five
strong
Pistons.
Yeah. And then he got Scottie Pippen, and then it even added some role players there. And Magic had good role players. I'm not as familiar with the Indiana State team, but there was some good talent on Greg Kelser and a couple of shooters, and even Caitlin Clark. She had some good players on her team, and I still think the greatness is making your teammates better. But if she scored 42 points a game, that's not going to be another team probably. I mean, you definitely need more than that. So I think that's back to, the definition of if they have to win a championship or not. Sometimes, I think of some of the quarterbacks back, Dan Marino never won a Super Bowl and he was on good Dolphins team, but
that was a long time ago. You say Dan Marino, I think of the isotoner gloves.
Wow, that's funny what you think of when you think of certain things. Yes, the commercial. Crazy. Now I do too. Well, I don't mean to date myself on here, and there's many other examples. And Tom Brady didn't have the hype coming into the NFL, but found a good system and really developed, and but some of it, that mental piece too, which I think he had, and we talked about separators before, and that's a whole nother podcast, which I always say on our podcast. We have a topic that will lead to other podcasts, but having those variables to be at a high level, and you mentioned it a little earlier, some develop it later, and even though Michael had the hype, he won championships at North Carolina, but to be at the highest level, it still takes more than just one star player, and depending on the sport, the number of a roster spot, I'd argue there's a percentage there of how many you need. So any other players we missed, or other stories, or
I was gonna ask, because you talk about winning, and I watched how Russell Westbrook averaged a triple double for a whole season, but he didn't win, and now his career is kind of very shaky. And how do you feel about people who get good stats but they don't win?
Yeah, I think the numbers always die away. It's kind of like the player of the year trophies. They just kind of gather a ton of dust on them, and the proverbial dust on them. It's more about how do they engage the cities? How do they engage their fan base, their teammates, everything else? And that's what really goes into the winning piece. If you're so focused on what you're doing in general, then you have less success. You know, we talked about Magic's teams, Jordan's teams, you know, all these different teams. But if you look at them, there's a lot of pieces to them that make them great. And I think the best players help accentuate those pieces to make the others great. You might only be able to get, you know, a little bit out of Big Will Purdue, but Jordan was able to do that, where if he was playing in New York, he probably would have struggled a little more because they had Patrick Ewing and Charles Oakley and
wow,
guys like
your
that.
NBA history.
So it's all about, you know, kind of what you said. It's being able to make people better, and winning looks like you're making yourself better, and then as you make yourself better, the contagious proximity makes other people better.
But to Jereny's point, I think society does place some emphasis on stats, and there are certain stats that we do remember, like Roger Bannister breaking the mile barrier, Ted Williams hitting 400, you know,
how good were
home
those
run records?
How good were those Sixers teams when AI before, you know? Because I was thinking of that today. You know, I was thinking AI, and you know, we hear AI today. We're thinking something different, but it was Allen Iverson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you know, the dude could score. Mm-hmm. You know, but
he made it to one.
Yeah.
Well, he's more famous for, I think, his practice. So even the things you say can, you know, lead to that. Back to our point, it is a culmination of a lot of things, and to get that hype, just like succeeding at the highest level, the more variables you have, the more success you'll have, the more hype you'll probably have, the more talent you probably
it's the beauty of sports.
It is the beauty of sports, really, and there's a following that supports that. And we'll talk. I mean, one of our podcasts will be separators on what it takes, that fine line to be at the highest level. Good. But again, the Caitlin Clark intrigues me. I watched more of a WNBA game for the first time and turned it off because she wasn't playing, but tried to check back. But I will probably follow her more because I like her. For some reason, I identify with the characteristics to make her successful, whether it's her or Angel Reese. I mean, I would enjoy.
No, don't get me wrong. Caitlin
if they play each other, I would enjoy watching that just from the rivalry in college.
On a talent level, though, Caitlin, come on, like you said, what makes people better? I love my favorite type of players are people who do make people like. I love Steve Nash because he knew how to make average players around him really good players.
Yeah.
So that's what Caitlin does. Her passing, how she.
Well, you're right. Passing, people give her credit for scoring, and even some people wonder about sportsmanship with her because she's competitive and might, you know, use body language. But she's a great passer, and she has more turnovers because some of her passes are, I don't want to say so good because they're so good they would get them, but that, you know, that they don't get received.
Are you a great passer if you have a lot of turnovers?
That's why I hesitated when I looked at you,
Coach. Good.
So yes, maybe not.
Great NFL quarterback, leads the NFL in interceptions.
Well, yeah, or you know, there was a quarterback at the college level a couple years ago that could throw the ball a mile, but all he could do was throw it a mile. He didn't have a lot of touch on it. Yeah. So
Randall Cunningham,
Michael Vick,
Joe Milton. So, hey, look at the name dropping we're having here. So, you know, I think that's good topic on player hype. Let's go to our last question. And you picked me last on our last podcast. And I don't know what order these will come in, but you know, I forget what we were talking about, but you mentioned a Coke at McDonald's was like that drink for you. And so I wanted to branch further because I don't see it regularly in our office. I know, like, I have a colleague, a former colleague of mine, that he'd go to McDonald's every day just to get the $1 drink, or he'd even go for his wife at night and go get her because it was the cheapest value. Pardon?
I said, now you're dating yourself.
They don't. What are they?
I remember that.
What are they now?
I'm not sure.
So what is that your go-to drink during the day? Do you drink coffee? Do either one of you drink coffee?
Not really.
Yeah, me neither. No. Me neither. I mean, I like a soda in the morning, and it rotates. I go on different flavors by trying
Mountain
balance.
Dew for you right now, right?
And Baja Blast.
Yeah.
I used to drink a lot of Mountain Dew back in this job, too many a day that I cut it off, and for a couple of years I didn't drink it. and then I came back but it's still not. I still don't have that same taste for it. But you know, cherry pops are a drink I probably drink regularly. What do you have a go-to drink during the day that you like to have?
I like soda. I like Cokes. You know, I'll try to have one for lunch if possible. But
and you don't drink coffee though.
No.
Do you have a go-to drink?
So I'm on the intramural fast, so I'll drink a lot of water right now. But when I do like a pop or a carbonated beverage, I like ginger ales.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Or like ginger beers, where I like pretty much like ginger ale but with more flavor.
I like ginger beer, but it's usually with something else.
Oh yeah, most definitely. But I cut that out.
Good man, Jereny. Good man. What about other drinks? And they're like, you know, like our kids drank Gatorade growing up, but the dentists frowned on them because there was so much sugar in them. And now I think they've done that drink. Our tennis team that my daughter's on, we've been drinking Sunny Delights because they had it in our office. Sunny D, you know, and I've seen you drink like some vitamin water before. Any other go-to drinks in that area? Not regularly.
So. No.
And I drink my share of water too. I try and drink so many bottles of water a day, and we really exciting to see our student athletes drink a lot of water. At my last years of high school, you know, we had kids with like gallon jugs full of water, carrying those around. Now water bottles are pretty popular that we're going to hope to provide for our student athletes.
Water in general in the sports world has become more cool, just like, you know, Gatorade did, you know, for the Miami Hurricanes.
And chocolate milk is making a push as a post-game drink. I think they're making a little. Our student athletes at Lansing and our
it's just harder with milk because of the food storage stuff. So it's hard
for
athletes to do that. So there is a push for it, but water I think just wins out.
It does, and it should, and it's the best. Research has shown it the best thing overall.
Well, RD Cates told us that soda before competition at the right time is actually a good thing.
Wow. I like RDK, and she's been good to our program. You know, but I've never had an energy drink, but I know that, you know, that's even more popular among my family now of my wife and kids drinking a little bit.
Fair amount frowned upon.
There's a lot of sugar in them, so they're actually it's crazy how much they're evolving there though of bringing the sugar down in some of them. But the back to chocolate milk, they've come out with new ones for too. We had some in our athletic office thanks to student affairs and Luke providing us with some these like protein chocolate milk that you didn't have to refrigerate that lasted for like 2 months. So I'm trying to think who made them, but here nor there. But again, you intrigued me with your McDonald's thing.
It's the best Coke.
It is. I agree with you.
I'm gonna have to get some.
Frankly, drinking I drink a pop a day and sometimes more, and it's expensive over time. Where that fountain drink, that's why my principal would do that. You know, for $1 a day, that's cheaper than buying one for $2.
Right.
So it intrigued me on our last one, so I wanted to follow up with it. So again, a little longer than usual, but I appreciate you both contributing and having fun with this conversation. And until next time, go Stars. Stars on Sports is recorded live at the WLNZ studios. Engineering and production assistance are provided by Didalian Lowry. You can listen to this episode and other episodes of Stars on Sports on demand at lccconnect.org. To find more information about our athletic program, visit lccstars.com. Thanks for listening. Go Stars!